What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam. You are listening to Podcasting Business School, the show where I teach you how to love your podcast like a hobby, but build it like a business. And today, I've got a podcasting superstar, one of my favorite new people I've been introduced to, Jeff Lopes from the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast. He's absolutely crushing it with his podcast, with what he's, the people that he's inspiring with this show, the guests that he's bringing on his show. We're going to talk about all the things podcasting with Jeff Lopes. Jeff, welcome to the show.
What is up, brother? And you did not over exaggerate with the podcast voice there, man. You hit it dead on, man. I love it, love it, love it. Excited to be here, man. Love what you're doing. Love everything about this. And it's going to be a fun conversation today.
I almost busted out the movie trailer. I'm like, in a world full of boring podcast guests, one man stands above them all, Jeff Lopes. This time, it's for real. I could have done that. I guess I just did. So
I'm gonna take that little clip. I'm gonna make that rerun of my storyline for 2 days straight.
I'll cut it and I'll send it to you, man. Anything to get people to share. We know, like we're a podcast sharing, whatever it takes. So I want to talk a little bit about what made you decide to launch your show. You're a guy, you've had success in business. You've got a lot of good things, cooking a lot of irons in the fire. What made you decide to invest some time, invest that time asset that I know you're very aware of into the podcasting space?
Yeah, there was one reason, one purpose when I launched this podcast, which we started putting it all together March of 2020. Pandemic hit, had a little bit more time because my two main companies, my corporations, had slowed down. One of them, we deal directly wholesale. We design, manufacture product to wholesale to gyms. Gyms are all closed. Okay, we had a little more time. We kind of reallocated a lot of that attention, went online with the business, but had a little bit more time. Another business I do is we do vacation and commercial rentals. All the vacation were shut down by the government. So we had a little more time, and there was a couple other things I wanted to do. I always wanted to write a book, so I took pen to paper, started writing a book. And I wanted to be able to communicate and network with higher level people. And you know how it is. You're not just knocking on people's doors or DMing people like, hey, can you be my friend or can you come talk to me? I said, you know what? That podcast world seems fun. I love talking to people. I'm not shy. And if I give them a platform that they have something or you're essentially offering something, that might be a way in to connect with these people. And I thought through the process, every time I do a podcast, my name's going to be out in the interweb somewhere, and that's just going to help my personal brand. And I said, let's do it. And I just started a podcast, and quickly it just became a fun hobby, and it became a great networking tool. And all of a sudden, from one guest to another guest to another guest, networking, connecting, business opportunities. And I was just like, this is amazing. And fast forward, 17 months later, we pre-recorded 142 episodes. And man, the names I've met, interacted with, became friends with, started businesses with, like, it's just incredible now. And in that podcast world has brought me to people like you, Brian Bogart. It's just incredible the amount of people and the friendships I've built that I'll probably have the rest of my life just because this podcast platform. So I love it, man. It's just been it's engraved in me now. And it's funny that I was even talking to my staff. I'm like, I'm looking at even thinking of trying a different little demographic, maybe trying a second podcast because I'm enjoying it so much right now.
Oh, the addiction has sunk its teeth into you. Yeah, normally what I see with podcasters is like right around that 1 year to year and a half mark. All right, I think I want to do another show. And people are going, like, I help a lot of people even rebrand their shows. So the conversation is this new idea a second weekly episode of my current show? Is it a show rebranding, or is it a totally different show? And like, that's the key decisions you need to make when we have these ideas, because podcasters are idea people. Like, we are creatives and we're putting all this content out. So what are you thinking about? Like, what if you're allowed to put it out there? Like, what kind of topic are you looking at?
There's so many different areas, right? I mean, I could talk about the fight game because my business is the fight stuff. That might be one area. I'm my first company in my background is the fitness world, and that's what I went to college for and stuff. That might be an option as well. There's so many different angles, right? It's at the second podcast now that I'm looking at as this podcast world could be a great business as well if you're smart with it. I'm going to be picking essentially an area that we could really, really build up our following pretty quickly and use the backing. This one was, my original podcast was an entrepreneurial podcast, Give the Ink. And I'll give you a little background you're going to love about it after, but it was the Ink. And over the last 30, 40 episodes, it's now turned into like, let's get on celebrities too. Like I have this week, there was a show that just recently gave The Young Rock. And the guy that played Macho Man on there, I just connected with him and we became friends, and he's going to be on my podcast next week. And so it's just, awesome. I'm connecting with just different people and people I just want to just have fun and interview, right? I'm a big baseball guy. I've been around baseball my whole life. I played baseball competitively. And so now like I became really close friends with Shea Hillebrand. Like we're buddies all the time, and other Major League Baseball players that I'm connecting with and building relationships with. So it's just like, it puts you in a level. So it would be somewhere in the range of sports or something like that, something I really have some form of passion for, right? I mean, be baseball, right?
Yeah. And like, I think if there's natural curiosity there, it's going to be great content. And that's something I can definitely tell from listening to your show. Like, you really enjoy the conversation. You enjoy, like, you're just naturally curious, and you can tell people that are just going through the motions. Like, I got to cover my questions that I always ask and hammer through this. And I'm going to try to sign this person up as a client that's on my show. And like, you have those shows, and you have people that are just in it for the love of the freaking show, man. And I can see that with you.
You know, it's funny you're saying that. I run all my shows on curiosity. I never research anything about somebody. Like if you were to be on my show before I was on yours, which let everybody know, Am's gonna be on my show pretty soon, which is gonna be awesome. But I literally don't know nothing about you. And I had one guy on, I'm not gonna name his name, and he was on about 2 months ago, 2 months, give or take, maybe 3 months before when his show airs. And this guy had done about 150 episodes as a guest over a year period. This guy he's everywhere. He's whoring himself all 24/7 to build his brand. And he was on my podcast, and about 10 minutes in, he stopped. He goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You don't know nothing about me." And I go, "Honestly, no, and I don't know a lot about you." And I said, and he starts laughing. He goes, "That's why." And I said to him, and I asked him a question. I go, "Do you realize something?" I go, "Why?" He goes, "You've said already 3 different times. That's a great question." I go, "You wouldn't have said that if I knew everything about you, because then I would be following what everybody else is talking about." So I go in there as literally like a curious little kid. I'm like, "Okay, tell me about you. How many kids you have? How long you been married for? Oh, you're divorced. Oh, sorry, buddy." And it's just one of those things, right? And sometimes you put your own foot in your mouth. Or if I had guests, I'm like, "Let's talk about your children." And he's like, and then one guest I had on, a really big guest, massive guest. And he turned to me, he's like, "Well, me and my wife are separated. I haven't seen my son in 80 years. She took him away from me." I'm like, "Oh, why did I bring that up today?" But it's just, it is what it is. It's that curiosity, that funness, that thing, which I love learning about people, right? And it just makes it fun, right?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like there are different camps in the podcasting space. And I think all are right, as long as you fit the own way that you operate and your own personality style. I've got a friend named Rob Dion who has the Open Sky Fitness podcast. It's a great fitness podcast. Rob does more research than anybody I've ever known. If you had 5 books, he would read all 5 before he interviewed you. Like legitimately. Yeah. He interviewed the dude that started the paleo diet. He read all of his stuff and was quoting from it. And the guy freaking loved it because they were like both like academic guys. Yeah. And then there's people like me and you. I feel like we're both good at thinking on our feet. We're naturally curious, and we're just into the conversation. Like, let's see where the rabbit hole leads us today. Yeah. And I think both are good. Like, as long as you are engaged yourself and you're personally interested, I feel like if you lead with personal curiosity and interest, it's hard to go wrong.
No, it gives a very raw, fun conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next thing that I'm curious about, like, I know that you've had a lot of success in the health space. You've got your whole health-based brand, and like in a former life, I don't want to tell you too much about me because I know that you'll discover that when I'm on your show. But in a former life, I was a gym owner, and I come from the health space as well. And the thing that now I call myself a recovering gym owner because I've sold all that off and I'm full time here. But like the thing about the health and fitness space is what it felt so cutthroat to me. And so like, we're the best, nothing, we know everything, and there's no middle ground. And then I come into podcasting and everybody, like, I interviewed a guy, this is a great example. I interviewed a guy whose show name is the business of podcasting. And my show is called Podcasting Business School. It's almost the exact same name. I invited him on my show. I'm like, this is awesome. And there's zero competition. He does his thing, I do mine. And it's just so friendly. And there's so much networking, like you said. So I'm curious to see if you felt anything similar to that. And that's what's like really kind of fueling your podcasting fire.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. It's just more of an open built community, and podcasters usually help each other. And obviously you're in the thick of it all, so you'd realize it more than most people. But it's before we went on air, you're like, hey, I got to share this guest for you, and I'm already thinking of guests to share with you. It's that thing where there's no jealousy built, because reality is most people that jump on a podcast, they don't just jump on one. They jump on multiple. They're either doing a book tour, they're trying to sell something, or trying to talk something. So they're doing a tour most of the times. The odd time you're going to get that one rare guy, but at that point you build that relationship with him. And usually when I'm done my podcast, the first thing I say to him is, hey, and this is maybe a hint for other podcasts, or maybe you teach this. I always say, when I've done my podcast, I go, did you guys enjoy this? And most people are all hyped and ready, and they're, oh, this is awesome. What a great conversation. I try to always get at least one good tear out of most of my guests during the conversation. And then at the end, I'm like, would you want to be on another podcast? And most of them are like, yeah, that's awesome. So I'm going to connect you with a couple other podcast guys and get you on some different shows. And then I turn around and I reverse and I say, hey, do you have any great guests you think will be on my podcast? Because most celebrities, no celebrities. And that opens up a lot of doors.
Heck,
and then and before they leave, I always get their cell number. And then I text them after the next day, and I start building that relationship. And those are little things I do that's now all of a sudden I'm looking at my phone. Years ago, it was like, oh, my friends. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, there's celebrities on here now. And it's like, it's crazy that you keep building those relationships, and as long as you keep them there and open, you'll be surprised how many people. Like I reached out the other day. I reached out to a person I had on my podcast, big name too, and I was like, hey, it's been a while. Hope everything's good. And I was like, they were just trying to add some more guests. Do you have anybody? Messaged me, or she was a female. She messaged me right back. She goes, yeah, give me about a week. I'll send you over a list of decent celebrities that I could get you on your podcast. So it just keep those relationships going. A lot of people will finish a podcast and never hear from that person again. I keep that relationship always going.
Okay, so you're interviewing some bigger name people now.
Yeah.
I want to know who has made you like the most either excited, or you've really been anticipating, or even nervous a little bit. Like who had you like a little bit amped up before the show?
There's two. But the thing is I'm amped up, but once I start, I just calm down, because I just have fun with this. I mean, to me, we're the same. We're just guys, or we're just humans. Like I don't care what you've accomplished, because in the business world, I've done well. So I've owned a gym just like you. Like I've done all these different things. So I've done all this stuff. So but one guy I got a little intimidated by at the beginning was Brad Lee, dropping bombs. So when I got him on, I'm like, he was just very quiet at the beginning, and just like, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Somebody that isn't quiet, somebody that runs a podcast. Now he's being very quiet. But once this conversation started going, it just got into an epic conversation. But at the beginning, I was like, okay, he's a big, this is probably top 3 podcasts out there, dropping bombs, right? Another one was like we're talking about is Richard Rawlings, Gas Monkey Garage, right? 19 million followers. I just reached out to him and said, hey, I was a fan of your show, Fast and Loud, and I just love what you do. I'm a car guy. I got a 79 Camaro sitting in my garage, and I'm a car guy, and I'd love to have you on. And literally, as soon as I send that message to him, within, I would say half an hour, he's like, yeah, done. Let's go. I was like, what? And I was looking back. The guy doesn't do podcasts. He's never on anything. And it just worked out perfectly. He's releasing his YouTube channel like literally the week after. He's like, oh, it's perfect. I'll advertise a little on your thing. I'm like, done. And that one I was a little, but I knew he had a lot of great stories. He's a celebrity. He's always on reality TV. So I just allowed some of the memories I had from the shows to start asking questions. And then we just started talking about his life and building into it. Right. So those are probably the two, just because their status in the different industries they're in. But overall, I'm usually just comfortable. I mean, it's just another thing. Like even I've been a guest on 82 podcasts in 8 months.
Nice.
And I've never prep. I never nothing. I just go on and they're like, oh, do you want questions? And I'm like, no, don't ask me questions. Don't tell me what we're going to talk about. Let's just start talking.
I don't like that.
Some people send me questions. Like I was on a podcast recently, and they send me questions like, answer all these questions if you want to get on the podcast. I'm like, and I just put yes. The guy messaged me back. I go, when we get in person, believe me, we'll talk. He goes, I guess they get nervous or whatever it is, but I just want that. We talk about curiosity. Like, don't ask. I don't want to know in my head what you're going to ask me.
Yeah. It's a lot. I've been through an even worse situation where in the onboarding thing, they ask you to tell them what questions they should ask you. Like list 12 questions that I should ask you. I'm like, what? No, I don't want to do that. I don't want,
Yeah, I've had that happen once too. I've had that happen. The only one I've ever answered, I was on a podcast with I was on her dad's podcast, and then he told me his daughter runs a podcast. I'm like, oh, cool. How's your daughter? And she was like 13 or something like that. And I'm like, done. I'm on. And I did her podcast, and it was just really cute because my daughter's at that time, my daughter was 14. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so cute. And I was on her podcast, and she asked the question. So I was just like, yeah, whatever. I'll follow her procedure. I don't want her to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to be the podcast bully. Like,
you're not gonna be a dick to the little girl.
No,
like, terrible questions. That's funny. I got interviewed by a 9-year-old Neva Lee Rekala from Superpower Kids Network. Man, she's talented, man. She's coaching other kids. Like, she's monetized her show by coaching other sub 10-year-old kids. It's incredible. So yeah, she's written like 5 books already. Just insane. So yeah, shout out to Neva. Now you mentioned reaching out. So I would be interested to see your technique. Like, if you don't get a warm intro, how are you getting connected, or what's effective in connecting with these bigger name people? Because I know a lot of people listening and they're like, I can't get through the gatekeeper. I DM them on Instagram. No, I'm just in with the rest of the DMs. So how do we, have you had any success cutting through that if you don't have a good warm intro?
Consistency, man. Consistency and numbers. It's a numbers game. I remember somebody saying this to me. I can't remember what it is. They're like, if you DM 100 and 100 reject you, there's 9 million others, celebrities or verified great interviews out there. Just keep going. And it's a numbers game. You just keep putting it out there. If I really, really want somebody, I have a little, I'll share with you guys. There's no real secret to this, but I will make sure I'm tagged. So as soon as they do a post, I get an alert. So I try to be the first 2 or 3, max 5 people they'll comment on their post, and I put a really great comment on their post, something that they're gonna be like, oh, that's really good. Or if they do something with their kids, like, oh, you're an awesome dad, man, I love what you do, and keep just something just to boost their ego. And then usually they'll comment back, and I'll throw another comment, say, hey, love what you're doing, keep up your great work, don't ask for nothing. And then do it again in a couple of days. Don't do it the next day, don't do the next post, wait about 2-3 posts, do it again. And I do that for about a couple of weeks. So now I'm locked in their head. And then when they do a post, I'll do it again. They're going to know who I am, because usually they're answering. And then that time I'll say, you know what, man, you'd be an incredible guest on my show. I'd love to have you on one day. Leave it at that. And then I'll just do this whole little system. And before I know it, by the time I throw a DM in there, or I share one of their stories, they answer right back, because I built that relationship. They feel like they already know who I am.
That's beautiful. That's great advice, Jeff. And one like pro tip I'll shout out that fits for people that are like really interested in this little tip. I use the big podcast voice, and I do a voice DM on Instagram. Like, same thing. Like, you've interacted with their brand a little bit, you shared out some of your stuff, and then maybe they've got a book launch, maybe they have a thing, they're kind of in car wash promo mode, and then I drop the voice DM, and they get lots of text DMs, lots and lots and lots, and that purple play button on the IG, it's just enough curiosity. What's this? This might be somebody that wants to give me a bunch of money. Who knows? Let's hit play. And then they go, what's up, Jeff? It's your buddy Adam from Podcasting Business School. And I dropped the big voice, and like it works a little bit. That's how I got Michael Hyatt and Gretchen Rubin on my show. And I was like, all right, let's go. Yeah. So that's a little pro tip from my camp. So there you go. There we go. So you got a lot of irons in the fire, like I said. And one of the things that I'm passionate about, that I know that you share a passion with as well, is balance. Like, having balance, if that does exist, but being very at least conscious of how I'm spending my time, who I'm spending my time with. Like, I work Monday through Thursday. I do not work Friday through Saturday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't work the weekend. Like, I am focused on my dad duties. I am dedicated to waking up, making them breakfast, getting them to school, picking them up from school, being a dad. I would rather have clients that go, where is Adam, versus my kids going, where is dad? And that's very important to me. So, well, I knew that, like, we're kind of, very in line with this. Can you talk about your strategies for keeping the balance and still being a creative person, being excited about new shiny objects. What's your method behind like, all right, I still need to make sure I'm also a dad at this point?
Yeah. So I'm going to give the audience a quick little 20 seconds into a portion of what I do. So I run a big corporation. We do with 1,800 gyms. We have 9 properties under our investment group that we rent. I'm an author. I've just finished writing 6 children's books. I'm going to release the first one in 2 weeks. I do the podcast. I'm a guest on a ton of podcasts. I'm a guest on a ton of publications. I just released with a chef the Kitty Kitchen culinary school for children. And then I have a couple of other little businesses we do and stuff like that. So I'm everywhere. And but first and foremost, I am a dad and a husband. And I call it the 3 to 7. So I call it the non-negotiables. So I lock into my schedule every single day, 3 to 7 o'clock. That is my non-negotiable time for my family. Sometimes life's change. I always bring this up. My dad has recently passed away, so life has juggled now. I'm spending a lot more time with my mom, with my sister. But in the end of the day, I put everything into my schedule as non-negotiables. What is the most important things in my life are locked in my schedule. Everything else works around it. And I learned how to sacrifice time for what I really want to accomplish. What I mean by that is everybody has a 9 to 5 day. But if you really want to get at that level of everything you're doing and really peak at everything you're doing as a dad, husband, partner, businessman, author, whatever it is, 9 to 5 doesn't cut it. You're going to have to work extra hours. And how I do it is I'm up at 4:30 every morning, not because I like to. I realize that 4:30 till usually 9 o'clock in the morning, I get more done than most people get done in the rest of the day. And that's a sacrifice I'm willing to do to allow myself to be home every night. If you see my storyline, I go on bike rides every night. I'm literally with my kids every night, and it's activities and physical activities. It's not sitting around watching TV. It's we're out, we're doing stuff, and I'm a big part. And I've learned how to live with no regrets. I've done that for years, and that was a big part of me. My dad, I was a 44-year-old Adam that would call my dad 2-3 times a day. I would call my dad to say goodnight every night, which 44-year-old does that. I had that relationship. He was my best friend. And I call it the non-negotiables. Like if my kids asked me to do anything, I was home last Wednesday. My son comes up to me. My daughter was going to go out with her friends. She's 15. I'm like, yeah, cool. She was going to go out with her friends for a bit. And I was working from the home office, and my son comes in, he was like 2 PM. He's like, Dad, he goes, we haven't been in a movie because the pandemic in Toronto, Canada, we just literally started. We're not even full open yet. We're still slowly opening. The theaters had just opened a couple of days before. And he's like, Dad, he goes, we haven't, and he's a movie buff. And he's like, we haven't been in a movie in a long time. He goes, we got to plan to do a movie day together, me and him. I'm like, I looked at him and I go, go put your shoes on. Let me go see what I could get. And I literally dropped everything, went to the movies, went to watch Fast and Furious with him at 2 PM. Nice. And it's just those things. The whole idea of being an entrepreneur, having the freedom is to do this shit, to be able to have the freedom to do what you want when you want. If you're just working 24/7, then what the hell's the purpose, man? Get a 9 to 5 job and come home and at least spend time with your family. So being able to do all that is what I cherish and why I love being an entrepreneur and why I've been an entrepreneur for over 26 years. And understanding that, applying that into your life, and how I do, like I said, non-negotiables. Family time is non-negotiables. Having dinner at home every night is a non-negotiable. Understanding what is important in your schedule, locking it in, and then working everything around. If you don't have enough time, figure out how to sacrifice. Work an extra 2 hours when the kids go to bed. Sacrifice what has to be sacrificed to be the best at what you want to be, right? I mean, you could have both worlds a lot. You hear all these entrepreneurs, Gary Vee, like, there's no thing as balance and work. I'm like, fuck off, Gary Vee. Yeah, there is a balance. There is balance. You could have balance. I'm fucking living proof of it, right? I'm living proof of it, right? It is 100% true.
Hashtag fuck off, Gary Vee. Create an NFT out of that, Gary. Oh my gosh, that's so true. But I mean, I love that NFT. That has to be
when you do the video edit, you're gonna make NFT to kind of go with like one of the a little unicorn come through our screen. NFT on that.
NFT on that, Gary Vee. So I recently did an episode about why would you trade in your 9 to 5 to have a 5 to 9, aka a 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Because that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do. They're like, all of a sudden, I don't have my 9 to 5, but I start working before the kids get up, and I just go past the time that they go to bed, and I don't really see them. I'm like, It was called Be a Better Boss to Yourself. And I feel like that's so important. I love the 3 to 7 strategy, or just having, like you said, the non-negotiable things, because the buffer time, the buffer activities will find that they'll get their grubby hands on your time. And all of a sudden you're like, I don't have time. But if you block off that time, all of a sudden you're going to get really super efficient, and you're going to lean out with your decisions, and you're going to cut out the clutter automatically, and you're going to have better results because you are recharged, re-energized, you're fresh. Like, you aren't just burnt out all the time. So I think it's a beautiful strategy.
There's one more thing with that too. When we're talking about scheduling, is being very precise with locking your schedule. And I mean by that is, if I say I'm going to work on this project from 1 to 2, what happens is most people start a project or start a job or start doing something, and all of a sudden 1 hour, and they're like, I'm doing good, I'm going to do 2 hours or 3, and they just keep going at it. The problem is hour 1, you're productive. Hour 2, you're 80% productive. By hour 3, you're 50% productive. It's locking your schedule. If I'm going to work on something for an hour, when it's done, if I haven't finished it, I'll deal with it tomorrow. Move on. And if you're very precise with that and actually stick to your damn schedule, you realize how much more productive you are than instead of just focusing on something and just, I'm going to kill this for the rest of the day. It never works out that way.
Do you ever find yourself struggling with wanting to always be ahead? That's something I really struggle with. I'm like, ooh, I got my thing. I'm done with all my stuff today. It's kind of early. What could I do to get ahead for tomorrow? Do you ever? That's something I personally struggle with. I'm like,
no. When I call it the white, that's your white spot in your schedule, right? So anytime I have a white spot in my schedule, I love those times. I drool on those times, man. Those are the times when I'll make sure I call all the friends I haven't talked to in a couple of weeks, or those are the times when I'll make sure I'll go and take my mom out for lunch. Those are the times you really do stuff that you are, one day, if something were to happen to one of your loved ones or something, you have a smile on your face because I did that shit when it meant, not when they're not here anymore, right? Because the reality is we always have regrets. Like I said, I can't stress enough, I spent that time with my dad. My dad was around my grandkids all the time. He's gone, but I still have regrets because there's so many more things I wanted to happen with him because he went very sudden. So living with those non-regrets and creating those non-negotiables and really, really sticking to it and understanding what is more important, making an extra dollar or seeing that friend you haven't seen in 3 months, like, man, life's too short. And money, and as an entrepreneur, the more anything, Adam, there's ways to make money any way you want. If you don't make money as an entrepreneur, it's because you're a lazy shit. And it's just being creative and finding different routes to make money, right? And it's just, you have to understand that life changes in a split of an eye. And if you just focus on business, man, there isn't come a time you're going to sit there and like, this shit was not worth it.
Do your kids get involved at all with your business or your online stuff? Like, my kids are very curious when I live cast. Every once in a while they'll pop in. They are very interested in YouTube. We've done a few YouTube videos. Like, are your kids showing any curiosity in what you're doing with the online space?
No, and I'm trying to push my daughter. To be honest, I'm trying to push my daughter because both my kids are fitness fanatics. And this is a story for another day. We probably do it off the air, but my son, he's been through a lot. He went through, I don't know if you know his story, but he went through, he was diagnosed with CP, cerebral palsy, when he was born. So he was supposed to be confined to a wheelchair. And I would spend 2-3 hours a day therapies from 4 months old when we got him out of the hospital till this day. And we went from possible wheelchair to AFO full leg braces to half leg braces to, before his 13th birthday, out of his braces, and he just ran his first marathon with me. So my kids are fitness fanatics. And my daughter, like, she's 15. My kids fight over the treadmill. They don't play video games at home. They fight over the treadmill at home. And I'm trying to push my daughter because she understands workouts like inside out. And I'm like, if you do workouts for kids on YouTube, you'll kill it because you are so good at it. And she's shredded to the bone at 15. And I'm trying to push her to do that. And then my son, he's been through so much and he's accomplished so much. And we have all these goals from now to 19. Baseball wise, he's a really competitive baseball player, and marathons and running, all these things that every doctor said he wouldn't do, we're doing. So I want to get him on stage. So that's another thing with me is I'm creating this platform, this brand, this base for myself that eventually when he's ready to go on stage, he could kind of just transition in. So we do a lot of public speaking together. So that'll be something where eventually I'll get him to start doing like inspirational things and talking and stuff like that, sharing his story in the next year or two. So we're kind of prepping and getting him ready for that, because when he does it, I want him to be ready and feel comfortable doing it. But yeah, it's something I think we live in an era right now where you have to take advantage of it, and you got to start young.
Yeah. And I'm big on playing the long game. I've got a friend, my friend Evan, aka Vanator. He has a show called Be Good to Future You, and I love that mindset. Yeah. And we can also be good to our future kids and go, okay, like both my kids work out 3 times a week. My daughter's a 6-year-old, and she just does body weight, push-ups and lots. She does probably 1,000 handstands every day, all day long. She's upside down. She watches TV upside down. Yeah. She's, it's just whatever. And my son,
do you realize their core strength that kid's going to have?
Oh, I know. And I'm like years and years and years. I didn't start working out until I was a senior in high school. And like my son, he's 10 years old. He's 5'3", 130 pounds. He's a giant. Yeah. And we grow him big. He can bench press 100 pounds. He can deadlift 135 pounds. He can do body weight pull-ups. He's probably gonna end up like 6'7", 250. Like that's his build. But I'm like, we started this in 3rd grade and going all the way through high school. He's going to have such a base, but also investing in their nutrition, eating clean, not eating the Pop-Tarts every day like I did for breakfast every morning, and then investing in their schooling, their entrepreneurship, knowing social media. I feel like you said, we can just start dripping this stuff. We have time, but just putting in reps consistently, we're setting these kids up. Our kids are going to rule the world. I'm very confident in that, Jeff.
Yeah. Love it.
So I know we're coming towards the sunset here on this interview. I'm curious as to what, like, you've been in the space now, and I can tell you love podcasting. Like, I can tell you love it. But what's in the space that you wish would change, or what's something that's like, I hate it when podcasters do what? Like, what's that thing?
I mean, I'm going to say I hate it, but I see it coming. And I saw that coming when I first started. Is everybody doesn't realize how much time and effort there is put into building a podcast out properly. So people see my podcast and they're like, I mean, we talked about this. I mean, I have episodes that have had over 30,000 downloads an episode. Our YouTube channel in 7 months has grown to 12,000 subscribers. We're getting over 500 to 600 new subscribers a month. Like, everything's building at this crazy rate. But that was a lot of reps, a lot of work, a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of just phone calls, a lot of prepping, there's so much that went into building this that people don't see. So when I get on a regular basis, friends, family, people that know me, like, Jeff, help me set up a podcast. I want to set up. I'm like, okay, no problem. Help them set it up. And in my head, I'm like, this is going to last like 4 or 5 episodes. They'll stop. And most people, and I would say, out of all the people I've had set up, one of them has actually continued, and he's Epic. He does a fitness podcast, but he's actually continued. He's one of my good friends. He used to be the head trainer of the Toronto Blue Jays, but besides him, everybody else has all fallen off the bandwagon, and there's been probably about 12 or 13. And I hate people that all think this is so easy to do and anybody could do it, and then they come in, they actually hit a hard wall of how much work and effort it is to consistently put out. I put out 2 full hour-long episodes a week. That's a lot of work, and people don't realize it. And we're we're consistent with it. We have not missed one, and we're not going to miss one. And just for the audience to understand, I usually pre-record and have at least 4 to 5 episodes in the box, and sometimes even 6 to 8. Luckily, I had almost 9 episodes in the box when my father passed away and life changed. And for a good 5-6 weeks, I didn't record. I was dealing with situations. So I ran out very quickly to the point where I didn't have nothing for the following week. In my head, I have to be consistent. I'm anal like that. So in 1 week, like I've been like tomorrow I got 4 back to back, like same as you. Like but I'll do that. And I'm recording in the 2-week period, I think 18 episodes.
Yeah.
And it's just because I know what I have to do. And that's sacrifices. You want to deliver a good product. You're going to put on good guests, and you got to be able to put the hours and the time in to do it. Right. Yeah.
And it's just like the mantra, my tagline for the show: you can love it like a hobby, but you got to build it like a business. Like you can't, but you can have both. I have a hell of a lot of fun doing this. I look forward to it, but I put my business hat on, and I really, think in those terms of like, this gets that sort of respect with the time that I put into it. So, man, Jeff, this has been awesome, man. I feel like we vibe on a lot of different levels with the way that we like to approach our life. Now, For all those watching on YouTube or on social, you can see all Jeff's info below. But those of you tuning into the podcast, I want you to make sure you check out www.jeffknowsinc.com. Jeff, where do you hang out on social media? If somebody wanted to hit you up with a DM and they're like, yo, I want you on my show, and they maybe start commenting on your post, they use your own tactics against you. They're going to use your own tactics against you.
Hey, I like comments. I'm trying to build our comment five.
Yeah.
So let's go.
Are you hanging out on IG, on LinkedIn? Okay.
Yeah, we're on all platforms, but I always say we make yourself sound bigger than you are. But I'm on all platforms, and but IG is the most relevant, and it's at Jeff Lopes, JEFFLOPES.
Outstanding. And if I have my way with it, I'll probably pull Jeff in. We might do a little IG live, or maybe like some Clubhouse action or something once this episode is live, and you guys can get a chance to say hi to Jeff there as well. Dude, I appreciate you. I appreciate the way that you're representing podcasters. Your passion for the art of what we do is very noticeable. I can't wait to see what you do next with your show. And man, I just appreciate you spending a little bit of that time, investing that time here with us here today.
And I just want to, send it right back at you, man. I love what you're doing. You're one of the OGs here, and you appreciate what you do, and you still have a massive passion for it. You can see it in your excitement, in your voice. And yeah, man, you're killing it. So congrats on everything you're doing and all the people you're helping along the way.
All right, Pod Pals, we gave you a lot to think about here today. And as always, I don't want you to just sit and think. Don't be a passive podcast listener, a PPL. I want you in action. Remember, a sharp axe does us no good if we never swing it. So if you got an idea and you're like, ooh, that's something I want to implement, I need to do that 3 to 7 blocking thing. Maybe just try that one day. Maybe that's the thing. Don't commit to it for a year or the rest of your life. Just do one day where you're like 3 to 7, full-time dad, full-time mom, full-time spouse, whatever. And make that commitment, take action. And I'm going to end it like I always end it, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you on the next episode.